You were praying for a breakthrough, a sudden deposit, a phone call that said cleared. You were asking God to open a door, but instead, He whispered a psalm. Not Psalm 23, not Psalm 91, something almost no one quotes when rent is due and your stomach is tight, Psalm 1 and 12, and you probably passed right over it, because no one ever told you this was your financial inheritance encoded in plain sight. You cried out for wealth, and heaven answered with words. You asked for provision, and the Spirit sent protocol. And now, you're frustrated, because you didn't get what you asked for. But what if you already received what you needed, and you just never activated it? No one told you the miracles aren't always sent. Sometimes they're spoken. You don't stumble into divine provision, you declare it. You don't beg for blessing, you command alignment. Psalm 112 isn't a poetic footnote, it's a wealth blueprint, a covenant code most believers never speak out loud. You've read it before, maybe, skimmed it. Verse 3 caught your eye. Wealth and riches are in His house. You closed the Bible, smiled at the thought, and went back to worrying about bills. But did you speak it? Did you plant it? Did you say it 7 times or even once? Because repetition is not activation. Familiarity isn't faith. If you've said, I'm broke 100 times this year, and Psalm 112 not even once, don't ask why miracles haven't arrived. They didn't forget you. You've forgotten what to speak. They told you to pray, but they never told you the difference between prayer and prophetic declaration. One pleads, the other legislates. One waits, the other moves. And Psalm 112, that's legislation from the righteous. Blessed is the man who fears the Lord. His descendants will be mighty, wealth and riches. These are not poetic lines. These are spiritual legal terms. Heaven does not respond to silence. The courts of the kingdom move by decree. If you never declare Psalm 112, your finances remain unaligned, your house remains in limbo, your future remains unspoken. And that's exactly why the enemy works overtime to mute you. You can fast, you can cry, you can sacrifice, but if your mouth won't speak divine truth, don't expect divine supply. So speak it once, just once, and if it stirs something, comment below, I spoke it, because your comment may be the first time in years your spirit has witnessed your voice choosing faith over fear. Psalm 112 doesn't ask for your agreement, it announces your identity. It doesn't wait for your circumstances to catch up, it pulls them forward. But if your lips stay shut, the covenant remains unsigned. The signature is not your tears, it's your declaration. You think God is late, but heaven's been holding the delivery until someone speaks the code. And you've been thinking like a beggar while holding the script of the blessed. You've been looking for handouts while sitting on the protocol. Verse 3 didn't lie. It never said might be or someday. It said wealth and riches are in His house. Present tense, now, already. But a promise becomes reality only when it's married to your voice. Until then, it waits, hovering, suspended, unsent, not because it's broken, but because it hasn't been spoken. You keep asking why it hasn't worked. But what if the issue isn't heaven's silence, but your silence? What if the riches are waiting inside your own voice print? And maybe the first miracle isn't money at all. Maybe the first miracle is the moment your mouth aligns with the word. Maybe the breakthrough starts when your atmosphere hears something different than lack. Because when you speak Psalm 112, you're not just quoting scripture, you're issuing legislation into your household. You're telling angels what to carry. You're telling fear to exit. You're telling heaven, I'm no longer silent about what you already said I can have. And that sound, your sound, changes the air. If you're still listening, that means something already moved in you. Maybe for the first time, something woke up. Don't let it fall back asleep. Don't scroll past this like the last 10 words you skimmed in your Bible. This is different. This is personal. So speak. Say it loud or whisper it. Psalm 112, verse 3. Say it now. And if your hands are trembling or your doubts still whispering, speak it anyway. Speak it with fear in your throat. Speak it with faith the size of a splinter. Speak it because silence has kept you stuck long enough. Speak it because it's time your house heard a new sound, and when you do, leave a mark, write it below, speak it into this space, because something breaks when the silent finally speak, and something builds when your voice becomes agreement. This is how it begins. Say it, write it, live it. Psalm 112 is no longer a verse you overlooked, it's a code you just activated. And now, we go deeper. You thought breakthrough was a moment, a flash, a knock at the door. But what if God never promised you a flash? He promised you a cycle. You were waiting for an explosion, but heaven moves in layers, in patterns, in sevens. He created in 6. He breathed on the 7th. Rest wasn't a nap, it was the crown, the completion. And every promise still echoes in that rhythm. You keep declaring Psalm 112 once, and wondering why the roof didn't crack open. But declarations are not lightning, they're rain, slow, saturating, steady. And 7 is when the soil finally yields, not because God was slow, but because faith matured, because consistency proves you meant it. Day 1, you speak in hope. Day 4, you speak in confusion. Day 6, you speak in exhaustion. But day 7, if you're still speaking, you speak in power. That's when heaven knows you're serious. That's when the resistance starts bending. That's when angels shift from watching to moving. But most never make it. Most speak 3 days and wonder why it feels the same. They think the silence means failure, but the silence was just soil doing what soil does, hiding the work. And here's the tragedy. Most people don't lose their miracle because of sin. They lose it because they stop too soon. Not bad, just broken. Not evil, just exhausted. Day 6 is the test. That's when the whispers come. That's when the enemy says, nothing's changing. That's when your body starts mocking your faith. But if you stop at 6, you bury the miracle 1 inch from resurrection. There was a woman who heard this same call. Psalm 112. 7 days, she started speaking, verse by verse, morning and night. Day 1, nothing. Day 2, a bill arrived. Day 3, her son got sick. By day 5, she almost threw the journal away. But she didn't. She clenched her teeth and spoke louder. And on day 7, someone she hadn't heard from in 9 years knocked on her door, with a check, with a smile, with a sentence that still makes her cry. God told me to bring this to you today. That's not chance, that's alignment, that's how heaven counts. So if you're still here, reading this, breathing, hoping, don't scroll away like it's nothing. This is your day 6, and if you're still standing, comment right now, I won't break on day 6, because you're closer than you think, because maybe this time, it's not the devil trying to stop you. It's the new you being born that's terrifying the old one. Speak anyway. Because speaking when it's easy proves nothing. Anyone can declare with a full bank account and a peaceful mind. But the 7th day doesn't come after peace. It comes after pressure, after persistence, after pain. That's why God honors it. Because when you say wealth and riches are in my house, while sitting in an empty apartment, that sound pierces something. It tells the spiritual realm you're not negotiating anymore. You're establishing, you're not begging, you're building. You're not repeating to impress God, you're repeating to rewire your atmosphere. Each time you say it, the air changes, even if you don't feel it. Even if your body screams the opposite. Even if your bank account rolls its eyes. The word doesn't bow to feelings, it bends reality. But only if you last long enough to see it work. The enemy doesn't mind you praying, he minds you finishing, because completion closes doors. 7 is closure. 7 seals. 7 tells your doubt, you don't live here anymore. But you must make it there. Declare like you're walking circles around Jericho. 6 laps don't bring walls down. The shout comes on the 7th. And that shout still lives in your psalm. So shout it quietly. Whisper it with a tired voice. But say it again, again, again. Because somewhere between day 1 and day 7, the realm starts responding. The house starts aligning, the atmosphere starts yielding. Not because you yelled, but because you refused to stop. And if no one ever taught you that declaration is a war of attrition, now you know. If you want to break a pattern, you must outlast it, not in noise, in rhythm, not in effort, in completion. Say it again tonight, say it again tomorrow, because the psalm never changed, but you will. And when you speak it on day 7, even if the rent's unpaid, even if your account says 0, even if you feel nothing, you will have won a war no one saw, because you didn't break on 6, because you showed up, because something broke when you didn't. And that silence in the spirit, it's not heaven ignoring you, it's the walls starting to shake. You're one shout away from everything moving, one verse away from everything unlocking. But before you declare again, there's one thing you must know, because if you've been speaking, yet nothing shifts, maybe it's not the psalm that's wrong. Maybe it's how you've been praying your whole life that needs to be broken, and we need to fix that before the next word ever leaves your mouth. The issue isn't that you don't pray, it's that you pray like a beggar while holding a birthright. You go before the throne like an orphan, while heaven is waiting for a son to speak. You were taught to ask, but never trained to declare, so you plead for what was already signed. You knock on doors you already have the key to, and then you wonder why the atmosphere doesn't move. It's not because you're not spiritual, it's because you're not aligned. You've cried enough, you've fasted enough, you've shouted at the ceiling. But here's what no one told you. Heaven isn't moved by panic, it's moved by agreement. Psalm 112 isn't a poem for the peaceful, it's a protocol for the powerful, and it only works when it leaves your mouth like a verdict. Surely the righteous will never be shaken. That's not a comfort verse, that's a commandment, spoken loud, spoken clear, spoken often, but you haven't spoken it because you've been too used to surviving. You've prayed the way trauma taught you, soft, scared, unsure. But declarations don't come from trauma, they come from authority. And God didn't save you just to survive, He crowned you to speak, not like a slave but like an heir, not from fear, but from seat. And that's why the devil doesn't need to steal your Bible, he just needs to keep your mouth quiet, because a silent Christian is already disarmed. There was a mother who prayed for her son every day, loud, desperate, full of love, but full of fear. She'd cry on the floor, anoint his door, write prayers in her journal, but nothing changed until someone told her the difference between prayer and prophetic declaration. She opened Psalm 112 and started saying it out loud, verse by verse, not to ask, but to align. My descendants will be mighty. She said it at his door. He will never be shaken. She said it over his bed. Light dawns in the darkness for the upright. She whispered it into the hallway, and for the first time in years, she wasn't pleading. She was planting. She was speaking what God already said. And when she hit day 7, he called her. Mom, I don't know why, but I feel like I'm coming home. And he did. No therapy, no rehab, just realignment, just heaven responding to a voice that finally agreed. If that hit you, if you've prayed for years with no movement, comment right now. I declare from now on, because survival prayers won't carry you where God is trying to send you. You thought the problem was God's delay, but what if it was your silence? What if the answer was always there, but heaven was waiting for your voice to sound like a co-heir instead of a child lost in fear? You weren't denied, you were deferred until your mouth could carry the weight of what you're asking for. And now that you know the difference, now that you've tasted what Psalm 112 really is, everything changes. This isn't spiritual poetry, this is your legal script, and every verse you read becomes a line of divine legislation, if you dare to speak it. Blessed is the man who fears the Lord, is not flattery. It's alignment. It tells the realm, this house is in order. Wealth and riches are in his house, is not a dream. It's a declaration of jurisdiction. And he will not be shaken is not comfort. It's a command for stability to return to your atmosphere. Say it again and the air will feel different. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Because you finally refused to beg for what your spirit was born to establish. And maybe no one ever told you this because they were scared of what might happen if you actually believed it. If you actually spoke like you were born to legislate from heaven. Because people who declare Psalm 112 aren't ordinary Christians. They're dangerous. They stop apologizing for abundance. They stop hiding their voice in polite prayers. They speak like kings, and creation listens. That's who you are. That's what's been sleeping under your old prayer life. And today, you woke it up. So now say it, not once, but 7 days. Speak it over your bed, your front door, your table, your wallet, your family. Speak it over your fear. Because Psalm 112 doesn't activate by being read. It activates by being embodied, and if your heart still trembles, if your voice still cracks, say it anyway. God doesn't need perfection, He just needs agreement. Heaven isn't waiting for your performance, it's waiting for your participation. So speak Psalm 112, and this time, say it like you're serious. Say it like the walls heard you. Say it like every debt, every delay, every fear has to back down now. Because your voice has found its weapon. And from now on, you don't pray to survive, you speak to shift. You don't ask for permission, you declare fulfillment. You don't quote Psalm 112 to feel better, you speak it to rule better. And now that your mouth is aligned, your miracle has nothing left to wait on. But don't stop here. Because Psalm 112 is more than a switch, it's a contract. And if you want it to release everything it carries, you have to know what's really hidden inside its lines. There are 5 promises in this psalm that no one ever told you about. But once you speak them, you won't recognize your atmosphere ever again. They read it like comfort, but Psalm 112 is legal. Spiritual law. Each line is a binding clause. This isn't a psalm, it's a pact. And every word is alive, but dormant, until it's spoken by someone who knows they have the right to claim it. They told you it was poetic. They didn't tell you it was contractual. You thought you were just reading, but you were standing in front of a spiritual vault and never used the key. Now that you've started declaring, you're about to realize each verse is more than encouragement, it's enforcement. The first line isn't filler, it's the foundation. Blessed is the man who fears the Lord. You were taught to fear like a servant, but here, fear is not terror, it's positioning, it's reverence. It's choosing alignment over emotion. Most people chase blessing by chasing hustle, but this verse says, blessing finds the one who fears the Lord. Not the one who performs, but the one who postures. Not the one who controls, but the one who yields. That's why some people work harder and still lack, because they operate from pressure, not reverence. Declaration. Because I fear the Lord, I walk in favor I didn't earn. And this line alone breaks generational pressure. The lie that you must overachieve to be seen, to be loved, to be covered. You are not blessed because of effort, you are blessed because you're aligned. Then comes the second promise, one that religious voices love to quote, but rarely declare with understanding. His children will be mighty in the land. It sounds like a nice thought, a wish, but in the realm of the Spirit, this isn't a wish, it's a transfer, a decree. Your reverence today rewires your bloodline tomorrow. Obedience doesn't stop at you, it flows forward. This verse isn't just about your kids' behavior, it's about their spiritual status. It's about dominion, legacy, government. Mighty in the land means influence, capacity, favor, authority, which means your secret obedience today is installing leadership over your family name. Declaration. I declare my lineage is shifting from survival to dominion. And if you've come from a family where nobody broke through, if you've watched cycles of addiction, fear, scarcity pass from one generation to the next, this is where it ends. This is where new soil starts. Not because your children are perfect, but because the covenant you speak over them is. And someone needs to hear this. You're not just saving yourself, you're speaking power into your grandchildren's future. You're activating the might of heaven into a name that once carried shame. The promise isn't maybe, it's written, and now, it's being fulfilled, out loud. Then you reach the line most people highlight but never truly claim. Verse 3, wealth and riches are in his house. And still, believers read it as if it were symbolic, as if God needed to apologize for including wealth in Scripture. But this line isn't abstract, It's address specific. It says his house, not heaven, not someday, yours. And it doesn't say might be, it says are, present tense, which means provision isn't just promised, it's positioned, already delivered, already planted. The problem isn't that wealth hasn't come. The problem is, your mouth never activated what already lives nearby. Declaration: wealth lives here, not because I'm worthy, but because he is. And someone reading this has spent years feeling guilty about wanting more, because religion taught you that lack was holy and overflow was selfish. But that shame dies here, because this line isn't about greed, it's about government. When the righteous prosper, justice expands. When wealth enters your house, influence flows from your name. This is not about you, it's about what heaven can trust you to steward. And now the atmosphere shifts again. Verse 6, surely he will never be shaken. This is stability in the middle of instability. This is what people pay for in therapy and self-help courses. But Psalm 112 makes it clear, shaking doesn't belong to the upright. That doesn't mean storms don't come. It means roots go deeper. It means the center holds. It means the wind does not rewrite the covenant. Declaration: my faith does not wobble. My roots run deep. And if you've lived your life waiting for the next crisis, expecting the next disappointment, assuming collapse is always one step away, this is your reset. You're not fragile. You're established. The last promise rises like a banner over everything that came before it. Verse 9, his righteousness endures forever. This is not about temporary blessing. This is about legacy. What you speak today will outlive your voice. What you declare this week can echo for decades. You're not just activating Psalm 112 for now, you're installing it into the walls of your bloodline. Declaration: what I speak today, my grandchildren will inherit. And if you've ever felt like you're too late, too broken, too small to leave anything behind, this is your correction. Heaven says legacy starts with the mouth, not with money, not with position, with declaration. Speak Psalm 112 and you write history. So speak it now. Whisper it if you have to. Say it for the 7th time or the 1st, but say it like the contract it is. Say, I agree with every line. I declare every promise. I activate Psalm 112 in my house, starting now. You've heard the verses, you've said the words, but do you know what happens when someone actually believes them? Not studies them, not memorizes them, believes them, enough to speak them out loud into an atmosphere that still looks empty. Because when that happens, Psalm 112 stops being devotional reading and starts becoming a divine summons. One man found that out the hard way. He had lost his job 5 months earlier. His savings were down to 2 digits. He had done everything right. He tithed, he fasted, he sent out more resumes than he could count. Still, nothing moved. He started questioning whether God was even listening. Then one night, scrolling through spiritual videos, he heard something strange. Speak Psalm 112 for 7 days and expect alignment. It sounded absurd. But when you're desperate, obedience becomes easier than doubt, so he tried it. Day 1, he whispered it, verse by verse. Wealth and riches are in his house. Felt like a lie. He was standing in a dark apartment, behind on rent, one light bulb flickering. But he said it anyway. Day 2, he said it louder. Day 3, nothing changed. Day 4, he wrote it out by hand. Day 5, still nothing. Day 6, he spoke it in the shower because he was too tired to pretend. And day 7, an email showed up at 6:47 a.m., a company he'd never heard of. Subject line, revisiting an old conversation. Confused, he opened it. It was a job he had interviewed for 9 months before. He had been their second choice, but the first hire had just quit unexpectedly. They had kept his information, watched his LinkedIn, and decided to reach out. Not only did they want him, they were offering a salary nearly double his last job, with full benefits. The start date, immediately. His hands shook. He couldn't breathe. He looked around his apartment. Nothing had changed yet, but somehow everything had. Then he saw the Bible he had left open on his kitchen table. Psalm 112 was still on the page, highlighted. Verse 3 stared back at him like it had always known. Wealth and riches are in his house, not as a dream, not as exaggeration, as a legal truth. Spoken, activated, fulfilled. It wasn't his resume, it wasn't timing, it wasn't even favor, it was agreement. His voice said yes to a scripture that had been waiting on his lips. That's not luck, that's covenant, and if it happened for him, it wasn't a fluke. It was a principle, and principles, when honored, always return results. There was a mother who had almost given up praying. Her son had been addicted for 4 years. Drugs, darkness, danger. She had tried everything. Church, therapy, deliverance services, fasting, crying. Every night she laid on the floor and begged God to save him. But her words began to feel thin, worn out, powerless. Until one night, she read Psalm 112 and something hit her like thunder in her chest. His children will be mighty in the land. That verse wasn't talking about someone else's kids. It was about hers. She decided she wouldn't plead anymore. She would declare. Every night at 10 o'clock p.m., she stood in his room, empty, dark, smelling of absence, and said one thing: "My son will be mighty in the land." That was it. 7 nights, same words. She didn't change the sentence. She changed the source. Night 1, her voice trembled. Night 4, she felt foolish. Night 6, she almost stopped. But night 7, her phone rang. It was 2:11 a.m. Her son, he was crying. He didn't say much, just this: "Mom, I need to come home. I don't want this life anymore." He came back that week, checked himself into a center, finished the program, clean ever since. She asked him once, why that night. He said, "I don't know. I just felt like someone kept saying something about me over and over, and I couldn't shake it." She smiled, because she knew that wasn't coincidence, that was covenant. Then there was a woman on the edge of financial collapse. Divorce had drained her. Her business was failing. She couldn't sleep. Her hands shook. Psalm 112:6 was the only thing she could repeat. "Surely I will never be shaken." So she said it, again and again. No passion, just persistence. On day 4, her account was still empty, but her heart was different. The shaking had stopped. On day 7, she received a letter in the mail. An old company she worked for was closing. In their final audit, they had found an unpaid balance owed to her. A check was inside, enough to cover rent, food, and give her space to breathe. She didn't shout. She didn't run around the room. She sat still and whispered the same words one more time: "I will never be shaken." And from that day forward, she wasn't. These stories aren't fiction. They're the evidence. They're the aftershocks of declarations spoken in faith. And if they happened for them, it means something else is true. It can happen for you. If you speak Psalm 112 today, your miracle will be dated 7 days from now. Heaven counts cycles, and your clock starts when your mouth opens. Comment your testimony before it happens, because the next person to read it might be waiting for your words to believe again. If you're still listening, it means something inside you already said yes. Not out loud, not in a church, but somewhere deep, beneath the fear, beneath the logic, beneath the old prayers. You said yes to the possibility that Psalm 112 isn't just beautiful, it's binding. You didn't keep watching because of emotion. You stayed because something whispered, "This is for you." And it is. So speak with me now, not later. Not when it's convenient, now. You don't need to shout, you don't need to understand everything. You just need to agree, out loud. That's the difference between hoping and activating. Hope lives in silence. Activation lives in the spoken word. So wherever you are, whisper it with me. Begin here. I fear the Lord, and I am blessed. Say it again. I fear the Lord, and I am blessed. Let the atmosphere hear you. Now speak this: my children will be mighty in the land. Say it again. My lineage is shifting. The curse ends with me. My house will not be small. Now say this: wealth and riches are in my house. Present tense, already assigned, already activated. Say it again. Wealth lives here. Not in theory, in manifestation. I don't chase it. It's been planted. Now say this: I am not shaken. My faith is rooted. My emotions are steady. My foundation is holy, my feet are planted. I walk through chaos and carry stillness. I move through storms and do not bend. Say this: light dawns in my darkness, even in delay, even in confusion, even in silence. Light still finds me. The sunrise still knows my name. Say it again: I am never too lost for light. My mornings are spoken for. Say this now: I give freely. I do not fear loss. I scatter seed and heaven remembers. I release and heaven returns. Say, I lack nothing. I walk in open-handed abundance. I live in overflow. I store legacy in every room. Say this: I am not a beggar. I am a builder. I do not plead. I legislate. I do not shrink. I declare. I do not guess. I govern. Say this: this psalm is not a poem, it's my legal document. I sign it with my mouth. I activate it with my voice. I confirm it with my spirit. It is mine, every line, every promise, every clause. I agree. Say, my house is no longer common, my name is no longer silent. Psalm 112 belongs to me. I speak it, I seal it, I walk in it, starting now. Now seal it. Say this: I declare Psalm 112 is active in my house. It is not a verse, it is a verdict. It is not a song. It is a sentence carried by heaven and released by my agreement. I do not borrow these words. I own them. I walk in them. I repeat them. I plant them into my walls, my windows, my floors, my family. I speak them over every bill, every contract, every bank account, every open door. I speak them into dry ground and expect rain. I speak them into delay and expect movement. I speak them into silence and expect instruction. Say it again: I do not hope, I harvest. I do not question, I execute. This is my activation. Psalm 112 is my legal right. Say it again: my voice just signed a covenant. My words just rewrote my atmosphere. My mouth just agreed with what God already wrote about me. And from this moment forward, the air around me carries a different frequency. The silence will recognize it. The pressure will back down. The resistance will lose its grip. Because now, I am not speaking from desire. I am speaking from dominion. I am not asking anymore. I am applying what I've already been given. I am the kind of person who speaks psalms and sees them manifest. I am the kind of person who finishes what I declare. I do not stop at day 3. I do not fold on day 6. I declare Psalm 112 for 7 days, and I watch what happens. Now breathe. Whisper this: my miracle has a countdown. Day 1 begins now. Again, day 1 begins now. Now that you've spoken it, comment it below. Write it in your own name, not just to agree with me, but to agree with yourself. Because your comment is more than response. It is record. It tells the spirit realm, I didn't just listen, I activated. Now save this, because you'll need to hear it again tomorrow, and the day after that, until the 7th day, until your story sounds like theirs, until the testimony you speak becomes the one someone else reads and says, maybe I can believe again. Share this with the next person who needs to remember their voice still carries power. Send it to someone who's been praying without results, because maybe what they needed wasn't a louder cry, but a spoken covenant. And now, walk it. Don't speak Psalm 112 once. Speak it until it becomes the language of your life, the sound of your home, the legacy of your name. Say it again tonight. Say it again tomorrow. Watch what happens when the spoken word becomes your daily rhythm. This isn't repetition. This is rain. And you just stepped into it.